Come on, everybody, it's time to listen in to an actor and a teacher who love their wrestling. No more division, forget those prejudice. The Wrestling Connection is here with Glenn and Chris.
Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of the Wrestling Connection podcast. We are here for episode number 62. A relatively boring number because we have no significance anymore when it comes to numbers in wrestling, but that's okay. We will make our own significance. We will make our own memories right here on the Wrestling Connection podcast. My favourite podcast, and hopefully yours. A podcast where we like to spread lots of positivity in the world of pro wrestling. We try to stray away from the negative Nancy's, unless we have our segment, which is the Royal Grumble, which we've only done the once. I quite liked it. So if Glenn has something on his mind, feel free to have a Royal Grumble this week, my friends. Hello again, everyone. Yeah. Welcome. It is episode 62. It's the Wrestling Connection. We appreciate you downloading and streaming or recommending this episode to a friend, wherever you are around the world. We greatly appreciate you. And this is another edition of us just chatting about the world of pro wrestling. My name is Chris. This is Glenn. And a little bit of a kind of rough patch for us in terms of how busy we are trying to pack in these episodes. But it's coming a time now where it's about to be a bit more free, as both Glenn and I work term time in this country, which means the same time as the Waynes go to school. So we'll have a lot of free time coming up for the summer. Glenn, are you excited for the lots of podcasts we're going to do over the summer months?
I definitely am. I'm excited pretty much for anything that doesn't require a huge amount of effort. That's no. I don't want to imply. I don't wish to imply that I would be complacent because the podcast is everything. I'm excited. What I'm here. I'm going to start that again. What I'm excited for is putting my heart and soul and all of my energy into something for leisure as opposed to work. Now, I love my work and I'm passionate about it. It gives me a lot of happiness and satisfaction. But I need this summer holiday. At the time of recording, Chris, we're recording this the day before it goes out. Next week is the last week of the school term. I'm crawling. I am crawling, almost literally crawling at this point. And it's still a joy. Every day I smile, but it's weighing down. And the kids need a break. The staff need a break.
Yep.
Everyone needs a break.
I was going to say, is it literally like just you're tired and you're fed up, or is it just big workload?
It's a bit of everything. I mean, this past week it was, because last Sunday I got my first vaccine.
Yes, and congratulations. I'll be getting mine on release day next week.
Nice. And it's a lovely feeling. I did have a bit of side effects. I just felt a bit sluggish for it a lot of the week, which is fine, because it like, if anyone listening is anxious about the vaccine, don't be. Get it. And, it was very minor. It was that way. Do you know when you've got like a cold and you're not sick enough to not work, like you're well enough to do your job, but it's just a bit annoying and it weighs you down a bit? That's kind of how I felt.
Yeah,
and so that was like on and off for most of the week up until about Friday. But of course, for me, being the anxious nugget that I am, every other minute I thought I had COVID, so I went through all my COVID tests this week. So I have to get some more on Monday. just more out of like, I would hate like to contract the virus, not know it, and pass it on to the entire school just before the summer holidays. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. So that's my biggest thing. Like, I don't really necessarily mind. I mean, if I get the virus, which I've been lucky enough not to have done the whole time, touch wood, but like, if I was to ever get that, I'm not so fussed about myself. I know I'll be fine. I'll get through it or whatever. I'm quite a kind of healthy kind of person, but I don't want to pass it on to anybody. I don't want to be the burden on someone else. The reason they have to isolate or they have to be unwell because of me. That's my biggest fear the whole time. That's been what I've been thinking of.
Absolutely. And so that's made what was actually not too bad a week feel quite more challenging this past week. Right. Timetable changed, so all the first years are second years, all the second years are third years now, and that always comes with logistical problems.
Totally.
And it wasn't as bad as last year where I had every third year in the entire school trying to come to my class at once. But it was still you cannot start a new timetable without there being some kind of clash or something. It's such a complicated thing to achieve, and then just mentally, it's been such. I feel like so much trauma has become normalized. I was thinking about this because, a lot. We had some bad news in the school, and we were all being really quite sad. Don't want to bring the tone down, but there's a point I want to make here, and it's quite cathartic for me to make it. and one of the many reasons why this is relevant is because A, your mental health is always relevant, and B, wrestling has been a very welcome source of therapy for me this week.
Totally.
But I just think that if you put your mind back to around the time we went to that Grado show,
Yep.
and then how if you know, so I'm talking listeners, March 2020, just
Yeah.
before the lockdown in the UK, and then that week or the next week they announced the school closures. And being in schools this time, and your mum will know because she's worked in the school
Yeah.
for quite some time, if I'm allowed to say that. It was such an uncertain week. Everybody was scared. Nobody was doing masks or distancing. Those were foreign concepts at that point.
Right.
We didn't know how big a threat it was. We didn't know if it would last for a few weeks, and so all that fear. And then the immediate weeks afterwards, when the death toll started to get higher and higher, and it was
Yeah.
traumatizing. But then, horrible as it sounds, it became the norm. And
Absolutely.
I feel like we need to be a wee bit, as a human race, we need to be a wee bit more mindful. I'm not saying we should all revert to being terrified again. At some point, we do need to break through this and live our lives. But so much trauma has been normalized. And when I lost, we all lost one of our colleagues at the school, and I don't really want to go into that too much, but I just that was a slap in the face, a wee wake up call
Totally.
about the fact that what I've actually been doing is not necessarily coping or but more bottling up the everyday fear and the anxiety because there's no other option. I need to press on with my job, and so I kind of emotionally kind of went backwards by a year over these last few days. And then, of course, in Scotland, numbers of the COVID cases are rising. And, you know, so much of how you look at it depends on perspective because we've got rising cases, but we've also got, you know, vaccines and
Right.
you know, a more vaccinated population. But, you know, you wrap all that up, and one of the most therapeutic things for me, amongst other things, has been watching wrestling and actually the Euros as well. So I've, you know, I'm managing fine. But what was a very simple question that you asked me has gone quite profound. But I just feel like we've always, certainly I have, and a lot of my friends and colleagues have, we kind of maybe lost sight of what that trauma was. And it's not a bad thing to
Yeah.
reconnect with it because we are still living in a very scary time. And
Totally.
I guess, I don't know if it was
Totally.
a good or a bad thing that I've become reacquainted with that fear, but it's there regardless.
Yeah, I think what you said there in terms of we've just normalized the fact that there's been a huge death rate over the past year. You know, it's like really. And now when you see those, I mean, I can honestly say in the morning when I'm preparing for work or whatever, I know you've got a bit more of a hectic morning schedule. I don't. I have like a set time that I start or whatever, and I'm working from home still. So I just have the news on or whatever, and they always tell you like the death count or like how many cases there are today and all that stuff. And it's just numbers now. You know, you should see the numbers. You go, right, okay, it's 3 more than yesterday or 3 less than 2 days ago. You don't even take into consideration how bad everything was and still is in some ways, although it's a lot better now than it was. We're still better is still not complete, you know. I think it's also we see things around the world, like in different countries, we see them getting back to their normal lives and stuff, and we just assume that we're the same as them. You know, like America, I've kind of got like they're kind of on the right track now. And a lot of states and stuff have cleared as if it's back to normal and stuff. I know like California's one and Florida's one and stuff, and they've just been like, okay, we're over COVID now, as if it just disappeared, you know. And you got other states that are a bit more kind of careful with it. But we see that online and we see that on TV, and we just assume, all right, we can do that too, when it's everybody's different and everybody's kind of going through the same sort of thing, but with different perspective. But yeah, no, it's an interesting time, and we're hoping that things keep going the way they're going. Although COVID cases are going up in this country, as you say, vaccinations are going up as well by a rapid amount. You know, So,
and we're
and
getting.
although,
sorry, you go.
I was just going to say, you know, the more people that are getting vaccinated, you know, the less cases are going to be, but it was naturally going to go up because things are opening up, you know. So, the fact that we're now able to visit people and we're able to go to restaurants and stuff,
yeah.
I mean, the number was definitely going to go up regardless, but we're just trying to manage that, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Like, see things like Double or Nothing, or the Dynamite before and after Double or Nothing with a big crowd.
Yeah.
Things like watching, even just like I hadn't realized that NXT had started having more people in the Capital Wrestling Center. So watching in your house takeover, and seeing the
Which
fans
I liked, by the way.
was
Which
I
I
loved.
liked.
I thought that was a great show. I've criticised NXT heavily. I thought that was a fantastic show. And do you know that thing I've been going on about, Chris, about these shows, NXT and AEW, needing to become more of a variety show if they want to be credible mainstream promotions? They're
Yep.
both doing it very well, I think. And I think
Agreed.
NXT, you know, with the spooky girl in the chair, what's her name? Forget her name.
I can't remember. I've not paying too much attention.
I've been kind of loosely following that story. And then, you know, Raquel Gonzalez and Ember Moon. And then did I get that right? That was the women's main event.
Yeah.
And then the Fatal 5-Way I thought was incredible.
So good.
Absolutely.
Great match.
See, I thought when I saw that advertised, maybe I've become too cynical, but I just thought, you're just throwing all your top guys together and it's not much of a story and they're just going to do a big sort of scrappy fight. But that match made me want even bigger crowds back. That match made me want to be there, which was a big difference. And the fact that Raw and SmackDown are going back on the road, I mean, and I cannot tell you how excited I am for SummerSlam. I know we're a few months away, but Jesus, like, so it's all, for every moment of fear, I have these sparks of optimism, and I've had such a funny week that way. It's been emotional ups and emotional downs, and even watching football, like watching the Scotland Czech Republic game with the kids, and then watching Scotland and England on Friday night, you know, with my father and my English sister-in-law was lovely and tense, and I could see how football connects people in the same way that wrestling does, and it was also it divides people. But you know what? So does wrestling. We're not the wrestling division podcast, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I come to you this week as an injured soldier this week because although the Euros, the European Championships are on right now, I also made my return to playing football because before COVID, for about a year and a half, I would play every Monday. And that was my kind of source of exercise and sport of the week. I'm not the greatest football player, but I enjoy playing. And yes, I hadn't played since February 2020 because we stopped because I don't know what happened, and then COVID was announced and Vince McMahon came out and said,
a new virus.
We're going to have a new virus.
Like the draft extension.
It's time to shake things up again. I probably should have said that.
Okay.
So we stopped playing, and the kind of boys have been back for a little while now, but I've still been a little bit trepidatious for going back just because I don't know how it is in terms of how close you want to get to people, but then again, it's outdoors, so it's a little bit safer and stuff. So I said, right, okay, I'll get back. Things are looking okay. I had my first game back on Wednesday night, and it was lovely. I was absolutely, I was struggling. I was struggling. It was a lot of the most exercise I've had in a while. If anything goes my way, it's the fact I've been walking every day in lockdown and trying to keep up the heart rate and stuff and keep exercising the legs. But other than that, playing football, which is maybe like the most purest form of exercise you can do, especially five-a-side, because you are constantly running and moving every single muscle in your body. So it was nice to kind of feel that again. I was a little bit exhausted. But usually when I play football, like I always come away with like maybe a sore foot or like maybe a couple of blisters on my toe or something. It's just the norm. You just get over it or whatever, right? I'm not kidding. On Wednesday night when I came in, I had the two, this is probably not going to be very nice of you and are listening, I had the two worst blisters I'd ever had in my life. To the point where on both big toes on either one of my feet, I'm not joking, the skin of the big foot were totally off, right? Like something you would see in Family Guy or something, when like Peter's eyelids would get ripped off or something.
I don't want to hear this.
OMG. Now listen, I'm trying to be therapeutic through the listeners who may have had
other... make us lose subscribers.
I'm just going to tie this back to a wrestling injury.
Please do.
So I was in a lot of pain. So I'm currently sitting here with no socks on. My feet are out because I'm trying to have my feet heal.
It's better than your usual no pants gimmick.
That's true. So yeah, I've got sore feet right now, so I'm glad I'm sitting down.
But you know what? See, after that story, I'm glad you've got sore feet.
Sore feet. So yeah, that was nice to kind of get back to it and be injured and feel again. And I have realised that I've had some sort of, not me, but you have had some sort of sporting resurgence this week by watching some football for the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
Because obviously, as I said, the European Championships are on. How has it been for you? Because I mean, it's weird how football is just on all the time right now. But as a teacher, I can imagine a lot of your pupils being really invested in a lot of the teams and the games and stuff.
Yeah, they are. But the thing is, first of all, I feel I feel like I've been kind of had, because when I was told the European Championships were coming back, I thought like we were going to get like Test and Eddie Guerrero and Shawn Michaels and Shane McMahon and X Pac and things. X Pac.
That's right, the European
Uh,
Championship, which we have a whole episode about, which I love.
We did, yes. Folks, I love the European Championship. I would love a replica of that belt. Thank you very much. Now, I'll be 40 in 10 years, so take notice,
Right.
Chris.
Okay, we'll have a tournament and have the final be in Munich, Germany, whatever it was.
Yeah. Right, okay. Are there any championship belts where you can get every person who's held it to sign it? I think only the Universal you could do that with, and maybe the women's tag, because everyone
Yeah.
else has at least one dead person. Women's
Yeah.
tag, maybe the SmackDown tag. Oh no,
Yeah, you
because
could do- you
Luke
could do,
Harper,
like-
Luke Harper held the
Oh
SmackDown
god,
tag.
yeah. How about Raw tag? I guess if
Yeah.
you're going to count that, that's the continuation of the WWE tag titles.
Yeah, so I wouldn't buy that. Nah, I'm thinking you're talking 24/7 title. You're
Or even
talking-
the Raw Women's title that kind of came on from.
yeah,
from-
yeah.
Yeah.
So you got that. You've got you can't do European obviously, but and then the Universal. That's all you could really do.
Unless you look at designs, like the new
Nah,
IC title or.
That's cheating. That's cheating because AEW
Okay.
World Championship for sure.
NXT title?
Yeah. The thing with the AEW World Championship is that if I had a replica belt, and those are coming soon, as we've now seen,
Yes, I saw that.
it's a gorgeous belt, and I was getting Jericho and Moxley and Kenny Omega, and that's the current champion, to sign it. I would, if he wasn't sadly no longer with us, I'd probably still want Brody Lee to sign it because he physically held the belt, when he stole it from Moxley.
That's right. That was
for a
like
wee while.
like peak lockdown storyline, wasn't it? Like
Yeah.
Double or Nothing 2020. That's right. Yeah.
And I loved that Moxley and Brody Lee match.
It's a good story. Yeah, I enjoyed that.
Anyway, I got distracted there. You're asking me about football, so
Yes.
the European Championship.
There you go.
So the European Championships, right? So, dear listener, I have not been a football fan my whole life. I didn't grow up in a football family. We're not a very sporty family. So even though I went to school and everybody was football daft, it kind of just went over my head. And I've always felt it was down to the fact that it was too difficult for me to find any kind of narrative in football or get invested. And what I've always felt I needed in any kind of media is narrative and character,
Right.
and character development. And the truth is, you can actually find those things in football, but I didn't really have the nuanced perspective to know where to look and how to look
Right.
at it. It's all about perspective ultimately. So in my less mature years, I was probably quite snobby about it, and then in my more mature years, it's just like, fine, I get it's culturally significant and millions of people like it, but it's not for me.
Yeah.
And the last time I'd sat and watched football was when I think it was in primary 2 or 3 when Scotland qualified for the World Cup in '98.
Yeah,
And I
France
watched-
98. Yeah.
We watched the game in class, and it was not that good. Although part of me, because I didn't really care, was quite happy that Brazil won. It's terrible, isn't it? No patriotism, no faith at all. So then you get to the situation that all teachers had to face on Monday of this past week, where Scotland were facing the Czech Republic in
Yes.
their first match of the Euros, and it's at Hampden. And here's the deal: it's so culturally significant. It's so important to so many people. To not let them watch the match, period 6 and period 7, after the year that they have had, after all the, especially the older kids, and well, all of them really, after everything they've been dragged through, is an act of cruelty, I think. And even me, the non-football fan, could recognize that. So I'd long resolved that I was going to let them show it. And you know what? You can still make it relevant and beneficial. You can make them do something about an English teacher can spawn a descriptive writing thing or a spoken language thing out of letting them watch that game. Any experience is an opportunity to develop literacy if you want to play it that way. So here's the thing: our timetable changed this week, and I thought I had my 4th year's period 6, which is when the first half was.
Right.
So I had bought in all these cans of Iron Brew and Diet Iron Brew to let them watch it as a surprise when they came in. But I had to tell them in advance I was going to do it, because otherwise they would all have gone home at lunchtime. But without a doubt, they 100% would have gone home at lunchtime. And I realized I didn't have them period 6, I had them period 7. So I had the game on whilst I was just doing some marking when the game started. And then I just heard all these boys up and down the corridor knocking doors and things, and a PE teacher. And I was like, I went out to the corridor and they were looking for an empty classroom. And
Like to come watch it.
Because all these boys had PE. And I said, Are you wanting? I said to the teacher, "Do you want to watch the game? I can come into my room." And so all these boys, some of whom I would then go on to have the following period, came in. And that's when I got hooked, Chris, when there was an atmosphere, when there was
Right.
people there, a crowd, so to speak. No more Thunderdome. I sat there, and at first I was still doing my marking, but then when they were going, "Hey, oh, no, that drew me in. I got so invested. And see these PE teachers, man, they are amazing. PE as a subject was not a good experience for me at school, and I don't think it was particularly well taught when I was at school, and I had no respect for it and no appreciation for it as an immature teenager. And it's only since becoming a teacher that I realized actually how complex, how challenging, how theoretical, how profound, and how
Absolutely.
how important it is to have PE on the curriculum
Absolutely.
for everybody. You know,
And it should happen more, I think.
I agree, and I'm totally sold on it. And these PE teachers are so skilled. And this guy who I think he was saying that Tierney or McGinn, one of them was in his PE class at school. And every
Really?
now and then he basically turned the fun of the game into an educational experience, because this was his National 5 PE class. And he was saying to the lads, right, what would you do differently? Who would you put where? And he was making them theorize and
Oh, really?
speculate on the
That's
spot.
really cool.
And they were
yeah.
getting into it, and it wasn't a distraction. They were like, no, I would do this. And he was coming out with things, words and phrases, and I still don't know what they mean. But he was saying things like, needs to be tighter, larger bursts, there's no one there, offside. These are things that I don't know what they mean, but man, I just pretended I knew, and I was like, "Yeah, needs to be tighter. Come on!"
Oh,
And
God,
obviously,
needs to be tighter.
it was a heartbreaking game, but I loved it. And then when that 5 class came in, so a couple of boys stayed because they were in that class. The PE class went away. My English class come in, and I broke out the iron brew, and it was just this lovely moment. And one girl looked up at me, and we've always had a very good relationship, but she's got one of these kids, and a lot of teenagers are like this. She's got the defenses up. You really need to build trust with her before she'll kind of let
course.
you in and really benefit from your class. And she took a swig of her iron brew, looked up and went, "Sir, you're pure sound, so yeah." So that was my
So you
validation
were
as a
like,
teacher.
yes. There we go.
Yes, I am. And don't you think it needs to be tighter?
Oh, Jesus.
And then I said, "You're awesome."
Call back.
I've had a good week, man. And so last night I watched the Scotland-England game, and I was hooked. And it was a great game. And do you know what? If I'm sitting there with my amazing English sister-in-law, who I hadn't seen in months, I wouldn't have asked for a different result. Actually, I would have wanted Scotland to absolutely pump them. But do you know? Can I say pump?
I'm not bleeping us. This is a one-take wonder today. Yeah, listen, I love to hear that. I was going to try and interject there, but I just sat back in my chair then when you were talking. To hear you talk about football was so lovely. It's so refreshing. Yeah, for some significance for any of those people out there who don't know what we're talking about, this is the Euros are a massive football tournament, right? They're probably the second biggest international football tournament, and definitely the second biggest.
Also known
The
as
first, obviously.
soccer.
Oh, soccer, yes. The one where they use the kick the balls with their
Yep.
feet. Steady. Ouch. Obviously, the World Cup being the main international one, and then the Euros is the second one, and it's just teams that are based in Europe, funnily enough. And this is the first time that Scotland, our wee country that Glenn and I are from, had qualified for one of these big tournaments since 1998, since the last time Glenn had watched a game of football. So that shows you how long it's been since Scotland have been taken seriously or good enough to qualify for one of these tournaments and stuff. So my dad keeps saying this as well, because Scotland aren't the greatest team. I think they're like the 45th best team in the world or something, right? Internationally. It's not really about like Scotland are in this tournament and we're going to win. It's about the participation, you know. It's about the fact we're there, that buzz the country had on Monday, and then on Friday yesterday, the buzz around the country was amazing. Just because, I mean, we don't expect to go very far. It's just about taking part. It's like seeing your favourite wrestler on WrestleMania that's maybe not getting a big push, but he's there or she's there, and you're like, yes, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's one of those things. It's just a really cool sentimental thing. We could be watching, as a football fan, I'd be watching this tournament regardless. But there's something about it this year where it's like there's an extra wee bit of excitement there. And there's people like Glenn that isn't a football fan, that hasn't watched in 23 years, who is now getting involved and is reading things online and talking about it with his peers and stuff. And that's what it does. And that's why wrestling brings us together, because there's like a common theme. And now football has brought so many more people in around our neighbourhood than our country, because there's that common thing. And there was the first game against the Czech Republic. It was a 2-0 defeat. And the country was a little bit sad. But I went into town that night for dinner. And the place was absolutely jumping. Like, there was bagpipes and people playing football and people singing after a loss. Imagine we won.
I know.
Like, it would have been ridiculous.
I know.
And then on Friday, the England game was crazy.
I mean, imagine we'd actually scored against England, how different it would have been. I mean, but people were so happy, and even it doesn't take a rocket scientist. You know, even I could recognise how well Scotland did and how much better they did compared to
the Czech Republic game.
The game against the Czech Republic. And you know what? This and one other previous experience has let me realise that obviously our whole angle here has been how wrestling connects us all, and we've waxed lyrical about that idea as a concept because we're positive people. And we love that common ground that you can find no matter what your divisions are. That's what has inspired us to sit down every week for 62 weeks. We need to do a Bischoff special when we hit 83, man.
Can't wait.
It just needs to all be about Eric Bischoff, right? I can't. Right.
I believe in that. We can totally do that.
And so, but then I realized that, you know, as much as wrestling is my passion, and it's probably the passion that you and I have in common, or the biggest one that we have in common. You can apply that to any form of media or sport, and football's no exception. The fact that I was pretending that I knew what needs to be. Someone's at the door. Hold on, Chris. Sorry.
Anybody could beat the door.
What I was saying.
I think Glenn was talking about it needs to be tighter, which in football talk means that the person who is maybe going to tackle the other person has to be closer to the ball, has to kind of press harder, has to kind of, all these sound like innuendos, have to be closer to you, you know? There has to be a smaller gap so the other player cannot capitalise on the advantage. That's what needs to be tighter means. What was the other one? What was the other one she was saying? What was the other phrases you didn't know needs to be tighter? What was the other one?
Offside. Something about
offside is when offside is when the striker starts running for the ball before the defender moves. I've tried to explain those terms you don't understand.
Nobody
needs to be tight. Okay.
I'm joking. Lots of people care. But I'm going to continue my point. So it was pretending to use those phrases alongside with a couple of months ago, or back in March, when Rangers kind of secured their 55th championship title, more than Ric Flair or John Cena.
Charlotte Flair, who's done 14 now, which I couldn't believe.
But Rangers, you know, when that happened, I think I told the story. I was out for a walk and this car drove past me and the Rangers scarves streaming out the windows and the horns honking. And I just went, yeah, come on. And it's like, I don't know anything about Rangers. I am indifferent to all football team success, but I just wanted to feel connected to those people. I just wanted to have common ground. So, I guess, and I
love that.
It's just lovely, you know. Everything is good, Chris. There you go. What a contrast to my earlier openings.
That's what it's all about. It's about connecting people, about being positive. I mean, the England and Scotland game ended in 0-0. There was no goals, but it was such a competitive game. There was such a buzz about the game. The Scotland players were total underdogs because England are the number 4 greatest team in the world, apparently. If you look at the rankings, it's not AEW we're talking about here; it's FIFA. These players in the England squad are world class. They play against the greatest players in the world, Champions League finals, winning Premier Leagues. Like, there's just the best players in the world in this team. And here's we Scotland, 5 million people. We have these amount of people to choose from, and they just did such a good job and made the whole country proud. So that was lovely. We didn't win, and we nearly did, which is crazy.
Yeah. There were so many close calls, weren't there?
Yeah. So that was good. That's us. That's the football chat over for the day.
Nice.
I'm looking forward to hearing from next week from what Glenn thinks of the second round of the Euros. Probably Scotland won't be, but they might be. Hopefully they will be. But hopefully Glenn will pick another team like Portugal or something to support, and then we'll be able to report back next week.
I've got a postcard from Portugal today, or yesterday, last week, from Ian Lee. Yeah.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah, explain that.
They offer out postcards, and so I It's got absolute nonsense on it. It's not actually it is from Portugal, but it wasn't posted from Portugal. And because I'm a Patreon subscriber, I got a wee postcard. It was lovely.
Very nice, very nice. Well, we're going to do a meet a wrestler in a second, and Glenn's going to tell us a story about meeting the wonderful and the broken Matt Hardy. But let's do a quick random wrestler recollection, shall we? We just watched SmackDown, and it was the Hell in a Cell match between Roman Reigns and Rey Mysterio, and they played the random wrestler recollection theme song like 3 times on the show. It was great.
Nice, I know. And every time I wanted a random.
Okay, the random wrestler of the day is Just Joe.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I have included this one in the list because you mentioned him on one of the earlier episodes, and I was a little bit unfamiliar, which is rare because I tend to be just as obscure as you are sometimes. So tell me a little bit about Just Joe, because you know more about him than me.
For the largest amount of time, Chris, I thought I had made him up. Because but here's the thing, like he for most of his career, he was a Sunday in WWF. He was a Sunday Night Heat kind of guy, and I just had this vague memory, after the Attitude Era, but before I had like easy access to the internet. So this would have been like 03, 04, 05. Of just a skit when the APA were backstage in their wee made up room playing poker, smoking cigars,
Right.
drinking beers, and this guy was passing on gossip to people. And he's like, "Who are you?" He's like, "I'm Joe." Joe who? No, just Joe. And that was it. That was his gimmick. He was a little stuff stirrer. And whenever he was asked who he was just like, "I'm Just Joe." And then his music was like, I'm going to try and find it. His entrance had that at the beginning. It was like, "Who are you?" "I'm Just Joe."
Really? When was this? When about?
2001. 2000 into 2001, I would say.
God, I know my 2001, and I don't know Just Joe.
Just Joe Titantron. Right. So, Just Joe's WWF theme. Here we go. Nah, I want with the full Titantron.
I mean, to be fair, that does sound like 2001 music, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's
sick,
awesome.
Oh, here it is.
Let's talk about.
Oh no, that's Conrad. Let's talk about. So yeah, he was doing like matches with S.A. Rios in late 2000, and then he was. But the thing is, he started off as this kind of gossipy guy, but then when the invasion hit, he was occasionally, that way you would see the Godfather and S.A. Rios backstage in the brawls.
Yeah,
in the invasion, yeah, he was sometimes amongst that. And because the invasion happened, he just got diluted. And you do wonder if the invasion hadn't happened, maybe more would have come of that character. But it was always going to have a limited shelf life. But the story doesn't end there, Chris. So he was gone like a fart in the wind, right? And he didn't do very much at all. I don't think he even held the hardcore title.
Crazy.
But I would say that it's notable that in 2003, ITV started a series called Celebrity Wrestling. And I heard about the series because on the so you know Paul O'Grady?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Paul O'Grady. He used to do this like tea time chat show that would go up against Richard and Judy. It was on ITV first, then it moved to Channel 4. And in one of his episodes, he had as a special guest TV presenter Kate Thornton and Rowdy Roddy Piper. So Piper and Thornton show up, and when he said at the beginning, I had no idea they were going to be on, right? So he comes out and he's like, "Hello, I'm Paul O'Grady, and today we've got Rowdy Roddy Piper and Kate Thornton." I thought he'd said Les Thornton, who was like an old Memphis wrestler, I think. So I thought, oh my God, is it like a vintage wrestling thing? And then they go, "And we're bringing wrestling back to ITV." And so they bring Rowdy out with Kate Thornton, who's actually at the time was not Les Thornton, but rather a blonde lady in her 20s. Right. And they were chatting about this show. It's like, and they were saying, "It's wrestling's back on ITV. This is a big deal." And then they showed a clip from it. And it's Rowdy Roddy Piper going, "And I'll tell you what we're doing next. We're going to do a contest called Sumo Slam." And then they showed a clip of this quote-unquote wrestling. And it was like gladiators. It wasn't wrestling at all. There was no ring.
Right.
But, so, and it was like, the guy from Smart. And it was like, and
that's a blast from the past.
I know, and like loads of different people, like that kind of celebrity, right? And so then I would tune in and watch it, and And not only was it like Gladiators, unlike Gladiators, it was heavily scripted. And so there was like storylines and fake injuries and stuff. And I think they were wanting this to be the next time a celeb to get me out of here. Now, the reason I bring this up, Chris, is because there were two opposing teams, a red team and a blue team, each consisting
Right.
of celebrities, and each had their coaches. And one of the coaches was Just Joe, Joe Legend. And
Wow.
do you know who the coach in the other team was?
No.
D'Lo Brown.
No.
Yeah, it
I was
was.
waiting for you to say something
Yeah.
like.
And
Hulk
here's-
Hogan.
no, they said it was D'Lo Brown, and they were like, and he was the former tag team partner of The Rock. And I thought, oh my god, Mick Foley, like, and it was D'Lo Brown, and so he was part of that. And I didn't.
I
Even
don't
realize
remember
it was
this
the same
at
as
all.
you need to look up ITV Celebrity Wrestling in 2003 or 4 or 5, I forget which. It ran for 1 year. It started off on a primetime slot, and it was so rubbish, and nobody watched it that they then moved it to like 11:35 p.m.
Yeah.
on a Sunday, I think, and for the rest of the series, and it was never renewed because it was like, people in sumo suits, or people, like in Gladiators when they stand on the podium and they have like the wee bats so they have to hit each other with. It was
Yeah.
that, but staged and scripted and
Here we are.
rubbish.
So I've got a celebrity wrestling, Kate Lawler on BBC Radio 5, 25th of April 2005. That's when it would have been.
Kate Lawler, maybe not Kate Thornton then, but that's where the Memphis thing came from.
Well, no, I'm sure. Kate Thornton was there too, but there you go. I will definitely look at this, and I might end up posting some of it on the socials if we find anything interesting.
Aye.
But that is crazy.
It's crazy, and that's actually could have been a more obscure thankful, but I'm not actually that thankful for it. It was just a weird curiosity that's fallen under the banner of wrestling.
That's nice. I like that. And sometimes you stump me with these things, so I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And things like the guy from Smart is it's a nice sort of
Mark
obscure
Spate.
reference.
Mark Spate, sadly no longer with us, but he.
Sorry, go on.
No, just sadly he's no longer with us. But that was like the most non-smarty thing that he did.
Yes. I actually preferred Smart to Art Attack. I liked Smart better. And no one who was in the UK in the mid-2000s will have any idea what we're talking about.
Chris.
Yeah.
I want you to think about what you've just said, and I want you to think about it and reflect on it. Nobody prefers Smart to Art Attack, and people who say they do are deluded. And I once nearly bought an Art Attack jumper off eBay for like 85 quid when I was drunk, and I chose not to because I knew how drunk I was. But that's just no.
No, I loved Art Attack too, but I think I watched Smart more. I think it was more kid-friendly Smart, whereas like Art Attack was very like.
This is an Art Attack. This is Art Attack.
Oh. Maybe, oh my god, I just remembered something. Oh, maybe one of the most 2002 sounding theme songs ever. Right, before we move on to this Matt Hardy thing, I've got something I need to tell you about. I forgot. I was going to make it as a thankful, but since you just did an impromptu thankful there with Just Joe and Celebrity Wrestling, I'm doing one too. There is a new favourite Twitter account out there, ladies and gents, of myself. And I've kind of mentioned it a couple of times. I've kind of mentioned, like, not this particular one, but I've mentioned a couple of funny Twitter accounts that I've discovered whilst doing this show before, but this one might be my favourite, and I think you'll like it as well. We've started following this account on our Twitter, at WrestleConnect1, which is called at Billy Gunn Sitcom. Have you seen this?
No.
Okay, you have to go look at this right now. This is a Twitter account where every single tweet is a video of some sort of 80s or 90s TV show, sitcom, with the intro replaced with Billy Gunn's 2001 theme song.
Oh my god, which is the best one?
And it's like, have you ever noticed that I've got it all from WWF The Music Volume 5 fits to every single intro theme video of the 80s. So here's one like from Happy Days. Obviously you can't see it, but this is like, I'm talking about.
I mean, all I can hear is the theme song.
So it's just the theme song, right? But it's every single one is like that theme song replaced over the actual theme song.
Hold on. Right. Oh god, he's done loads.
There's loads of them, and it's so right. It's so true. They all work. There's one for Happy Days, The Wonder Years,
I want to find one for a show that I know quite well.
Boy Meets
Uh,
World,
Oh, thank you for
Family
being a friend.
Matters. There's one of The Simpsons, I'm sure. Cosby Show. Thank you for being a friend. That was the Golden Girls.
Where's the It does. Surprisingly, I want to get the Happy Days one. I can't find it.
But it's just a genius idea. It's like that Rick Rude one. Remember I told you about, like, it was videos of Rick Rude selling atomic drops, and there's one of, like, William Regal selling just a whole Twitter account based on that. There's one of, like,
I'm sold.
there's like a Twitter account of, like, every tweet is just Daniel Craig being like, "Ladies and gentlemen, the weekend," and they just tweet it every Friday. So people who have these Twitter accounts specialising in just one thing, I think, is very, very funny. I'm actually thinking about starting an Instagram where I'm going to go completely anonymous, and I'm going to review food around Glasgow and try to be invited to restaurants and get free meals. That's what I'm going to try and do.
So this is just a long-term ploy for free food, isn't it?
Yes.
Good. Glad we could settle that. Right. Shall we do Meet a Wrestler?
Let's do it right now. Do you need a toilet, or do you want to just go for it?
I'll just go for it.
Here we go. It's time to meet a wrestler.
Meet a wrestler, we met a wrestler in the flesh.
Oh, yeah.
I know I love hearing that jingle because my wife is not here right now. She's away, but she's coming
Where
back
is she?
soon. She's away staying at her pals.
All right.
Because she's a bridesmaid, so she's been away doing bridesmaid things. So that's that. And that's all I'm saying.
Are you going to be a groomsman?
No, I'm just going to be a guest. And a dancer.
All right. You sound sad about that.
No, I'm more than okay about that. I have a couple of friends who, if they get married, I might have roles at their wedding, depending on what kind of wedding they do. But I don't really want a role at a wedding again. I just want to be a guest. Because, being a groom is like the ultimate role. Unless you're a bride, of course.
Don't need to brag about it.
Oh, well, you're in charge of your own destiny, mate. So, I met Matt Hardy, and it was nice. See you later, folks. Have a lovely week. Right, this story's got a two-parter. The first part I need to touch upon, and I've told it before in part, but I need to set the scene. So, I met Hardy in 2016. Matt, that is. But the beginning of the story actually goes back 8 years. So, we're going back to 2008, okay?
Okay.
April 2008, my friend Robert and I went to a SmackDown and ECW house show at Brayhead Arena, which was headlined by a 6-man tag where our boy Matt Hardy teamed up with Batista and The Undertaker to face
I remember.
Mark Henry, Montel Vontavious Porter, MVP, and Edge. Now, that's important, folks. That's very important, that detail. Okay. So, great show. Fantastic. Lots of fun. And we were all very happy. And it was in April 2008. And I was a happy chappy. And I went home from that show feeling satisfied. We had really good seats. We were like 8 rows back or something. It was a great experience. And then about a week and a half later, I got a phone call from this number. Like an international number, and I answered it, and it was my now sadly late great Auntie Avril. Now Auntie Avril was my dad's auntie, and she was like the reigning monarch of her family. When she passed away in 2015, it was like every family kind of has that figure that when they go, the family is not quite the same. They're a wee bit lacking in structure and guidance, and she was just like our leader in the most positive way. And she was a powerhouse. She was a very a relatively short woman with a very loud voice, a passion. I loved her family, loved her Tia Maria, and foot massages. And she would do anything for her great nephews and nieces. I don't think she was a grandmother herself, but because a lot of the grandparents sort of died fairly early, she was the grandmother of the family, and she was really my third grandmother in many ways after my other grandmothers either got ill or passed away. So that I just need to highlight how important she was to the family. And like I say, she'd do anything for us. We were effectively her grandchildren. So I get this phone call from Auntie Avril, who's in like Spain. She's been on holiday for a week and a half, and she's like, I was like, hello. And she's like, oh, hello, Glenn. It's Auntie Avril here. I've met some of your wrestlers and I got them to sign a wee bit of paper. I thought, really? What? Okay. Can you tell me who? Oh, I don't know. They were all big men, but one of them was a really small man. Jerry, where's that paper? Oh, here, let me get my glasses. Do you know the wee one? Do you know a wee leaf? Hornswaggle. Do you know a Hornswaggle? And so, all right, okay. And so, fast forward another week or so, and they get back and they come and visit with this piece of paper, and then the whole story unfolds. So, I need you to think about this. It was the day after the SmackDown and ECW show. It was about 6 o'clock or like 5 in the morning. Auntie Avril and Uncle Jerry are going to get a flight to Spain. Nice cheap deal.
That's right.
And all the WWE cast and crew were there, and and all of them, according to my Uncle Jerry, were miserable, wearing headphones, and clearly did not want to be spoken to because it was 5 a.m. at an airport in another country, and they were on an exhausting tour. Auntie Avril has no subtlety to her.
Right.
So she goes right up to them. And according to Jerry, and I've spoken to him about this since, because Jerry's still alive and kicking. The guy's in his 80s and sharp as a item that's sharp. And so she went up to all of them, and if they had their headphones on, would tap them and nudge them and pull on their clothes. Like, you know when you hear that CM Punk on The Art of Wrestling, and he's talking about, rude fans? Oh my God! Auntie Avril only got away with that because she was a wee old woman,
an old lady. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
I feel like you've told me. Have you told me this before? Where you had like a bit of paper and there was an autograph on it. You didn't know who it was.
Well, yeah. I've told this, and I've told it briefly early on in the podcast.
That's
like,
right,
very briefly, but not the full thing. And so she's going up to these wrestlers, and she's going, "Here, you know my son, my grandson. He was at the seen him at the show. We need to sign this." And she just grabs this. So it's a leaflet, and on one side it's like what to expect when you go through security: no bottles, no cans, no aerosol cans, no knives, and anything like that. And on the flip side, she's just gone up to people who would go up to her. And I just think, did she walk past the Undertaker and choose MVP?
Surely she'd recognise, the Big Show or something like that,
She wouldn't recognise any of them, Chris. In her mind, they were all big tattooed men.
Apart from Hornswoggle.
Apart from Hornswoggle. So Hornswoggle apparently was lovely, and did his name in a wee clover, which was nice. MVP was also lovely, apparently, and he just wrote the letters MVP. So a very easily forgeable signature, and it's not as fancy as the way he does the signature now. So this would be a worthless piece of paper. But then the other signature I recognised immediately because I knew the Hardy Boys so well, and I'd met Jeff the year before. Didn't go so well. Tune back into the archives for that one. And
you find that one somewhere in episodes, I don't know, 20 odd.
And let's sip of water. And
it's funny we've both met Jeff, but I've not met Matt.
Yeah, that'll happen soon, man. And so he and his signature was so distinctive because I used to see it like on action figures and in magazines and things. So I recognized it straight away as Matt Hardy's signature. And I love Hornswoggle and MVP, but I would have got rid of all the other ones just to have the Matt Hardy one. So that became a prized possession, which I've still got. And you're absolutely right. There is another signature on there, which nobody has been able to identify. And we'll put it out. I'll maybe try and get a well-followed person to say. There was I remember going on WWEauction.com about a year later, and the Survivor Series with Edge and the chainsaw in the poster was like 09 or 08 or something.
Yes, that was 07 because he returned at that pay-per-view, but he was on the poster. So we're well, thanks for spoiling the surprise.
Yeah. Well, they couldn't do another Vengeance 01, really,
That's true.
But anyway, so there was a chair from that event that was signed, and that exact signature is on that chair. So whoever it was on the roster, touring with SmackDown and ECW in 08 in springtime, and was also at the show at Survivor Series 07. Whether or not they were actually on the broadcast is another matter.
Right. God.
And now some people have said it has a passing resemblance to Hardcore Holly's one, but Hardcore Holly wasn't on the show. So if it was
right, I remember.
He'd been at the building, but he wouldn't have been. He wasn't at the show. I don't even know if he was active at the time. I know he was part of the ECW brand. But
07, yeah, he would have been because he's in December to Dismember, isn't he?
yeah, so it could potentially be him, but it's not really close enough. And no other. I found one trading card where it looks a bit similar, and I know guys changed their signatures a wee bit.
Yeah,
But to this day, it's still a mystery, and I've often thought, is it a referee? Is it like
yeah.
So, but I still can't figure out. So it remains a mystery that I hope one day will be solved definitively. That it could be Hardcore Holly, but I just don't know.
I
for
really
sure.
hope this story goes in the way that, like, you take this autograph to Matt Hardy and say, "Whose autograph is this?"
That would have been brilliant. No, it didn't go like that. So I kept that, and then fast forward to 2016, Inside the Ropes announced that they're bringing Broken Matt Hardy over, and in 2016 he was
Absolutely.
so white hot, wasn't he? Like he was so
Absolutely.
over. And so it was a big deal, and it's always a big deal meeting Matt Hardy, but he's had this big resurgence with the Broken character, and so we went. Robert and I went to the show, got the VIP access, and it was at Classic Grand, and so it was one of those ones where you meet them first, take your seat, and then the show happens. And at that point, Matt Hardy just wasn't breaking character for anyone. So he did the whole show in character, did the whole interview with Kenny McIntosh in character.
Oh, that's amazing.
You could still ask him about, the ladder match with Edge and Christian at No Mercy 99, and he would talk about it, but he would talk about it like this, yes!
Yeah, and he'd say, like, it was like my former deity from 8000 BC or whatever.
So everything fit within the character. So we went, the show was really good, and I went to the bar, and at one point during the show, this is after I'd met him, and I went to get a drink, and somebody then came to the bar next to me. And at first I thought it was a really tall person, and I looked around, it was actually a woman with a hoodie on, her hood up, and a toddler with a hoodie on and a hood up right next to me.
No way.
And it was Rebby Sky, or is it Rebby? Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Rebby Sky, Queen
And
Rebecca.
and King Maxwell. Who were there, and I looked right at King Maxwell, and King Maxwell and I just sort of stared at each other for a little while because he's just a toddler. He's just sort of like,
At this point,
he's tired. He was really tired at this point because there was a package where you could get your picture with the whole family, including Senior Benjamin.
Of course.
I didn't see Senior Benjamin that night, but I know he was there. And so we just sort of looked at each other, and then Rebby looked up to look at me, and I thought, I don't want to be this creep who's looking at her Wayne, so I just looked back at the party. So then I got my drink, but rewind a little bit to the meet and greet with Matt Hardy. So I did have that weird interaction with Rebby Sky and King Maxwell. So we get to the Matt Hardy show, and we queue up for him, and it's on the stage, and so I'm there, and I don't really know what to say to him, and I'm getting more nervous as I get close to him. This is kind of a running theme when I meet these wrestlers. And
yeah, but also, like, Matt Hardy is in total character. Like, that'd be nerve-wracking anyway.
It's one thing meeting Matt Hardy. It's another thing meeting Broken Matt Hardy. This is
Exactly.
Everything's fair game. So Robert meets him first, as he always does. Robert takes a really good picture with him. They both do the yes thing with the hands, So then I go up and I shake his hand, I'm just going to try and play it out to you how the conversation went. All right.
Okay, so I'm assuming the differences are going to be the tone of the voice here.
Oh yeah. So Matt Hardy. Yes, hello. What is your name? Glenn. Are you local? And I went, yeah, I'm from Glasgow. It's brilliant, wonderful. You met my auntie in an airport, and you signed an autograph for her, and it meant a lot to me. And you tell her I said thank you. And I didn't want to then tell her that she was dead by that point. But
jeez.
I went, okay, and then we posed in for the picture, and he put his arm around me, and it was quite sore. Like when he because he put his arm around me, and we both did the ass thing, his bicep bumping off my back was quite sore. And then I turned around after the picture, and I was like, "Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure." Delete.
Delete. Yes.
I went, and Robert was waiting for me, and he just looked disgusted. And then we sat down and took in the show. So the meeting, I've had worse meetings with wrestlers, but it was a weird, anxiety-ridden, adrenaline-ridden interaction with a fantastic guy. And Matt Hardy is a legend on so many counts. His longevity, his creativity, his innovative nature, and the fact that he's great with his fans. And, he saw that I was anxious, stayed in character, and tried to make it work. God bless him. So, there you go. And that's it. And I don't know if I've met the siblings of any other wrestlers, but kind King Maxwell was a standout guy. And do you know what? The way that we gazed into each other's eyes was like he was challenging me to a staring contest.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But he was probably more thinking, who's this weirdo looking at me?
Yeah. One day, King Maxwell will be in the WWE, and you will have met him before and had a staring contest with him. And you'll probably be about 50 at the time, but you'll be like, I've met him, and I bet him at a staring contest because his mum tried to shout at
Mum
me.
scared me.
She is quite a scary lady, is she not? She's quite like.
I think she can be if you want. But the thing is, I just don't annoy a parent when it comes to their kids, and I just was worried that she would think, "Why are you staring at my son?" But it was more like, "Is that King Maxwell and Rebby Hardy?" Like, there you go.
Maybe she was like, "Don't you break my son, or I'll break you, just so you're like my broken husband, and then your name will be Broken Glenn."
And
Maybe
I
that's
would
what she
say,
said.
"Well, you could break me, but it needs to be tighter." So there you go.
You just you start shouting at her, offside.
You know, that's what I would say to John Cena with the STF after all these years. Needs to be tighter.
Needs to be tighter, absolutely. And on that note, we'll finish another episode. Thank you for sharing your broken Matt Hardy story, not to be topped by the broken Nosferatu performance by myself at your birthday party this year.
That's true. That's true.
Inspired by broken Matt Hardy, of course. I feel like if I was to meet Matt, I would prefer to meet him normally, right? Not as broken. Because remember I told you at WrestleMania 17 there's that meet and greet sort of bit where him and Jeff were like signing autographs at Access and they interview them and stuff before the match, before TLC 2.
Going into this like it's my last.
I kind of want that. I kind of want to go up to him and say, how are you preparing for TLC 2? And seeing what he says. I kind of want that. But listen, if I was got the opportunity to meet Broken Matt Hardy, I'd be over the moon as well. Sounds like a fun one. And I bet the show was amazing because I remember him doing that whole Talker's Jericho interview in character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're right about that time. Like, just, he was 100% in the character. What he was doing was just full on kayfabe, brother.
Absolutely.
And I loved it. He was the hottest thing in the business. Matt Hardy in 2016. It's crazy, right? It's so. I'm so happy for him now as well, doing something different. I'd love to see a full on broken Matt in AEW doing. I think it will happen once all of his family turn on him or something like that, and we get back to live audiences and stuff. You know, looking forward to that big Dynamite in September in New York and that big tennis US Open stadium. That'll be class. Mm-hmm. Hopefully they can fill it up and. Hopefully we'll get a good Matt Hardy moment there as well.
Well, the best way to fill up that stadium, the best way to make that happen is to tell them that they can't do it, and then it'll happen.
Absolutely. I saw Cody Rhodes got a tweet this week saying, good luck trying to fill 20,000 seats. And he said, I've been told this before.
Exactly.
So I'm sure he'll manage. Right, ladies and gents, thanks for listening to episode 62. It's been a fun one. We've talked about football. We've talked about vaccines, and we've talked about the broken brilliance of Matt Hardy. So tune in next time for another brand new episode. Make sure you get us on the socials at Wrestle Connection on Instagram and at WrestleConnect1 on Twitter, and subscribe to us on YouTube just under the name Wrestle Connection, and you can get us just by searching the Wrestling Connection podcast on there. Tell your friends about us, share it with your pets, share it with yourself when you go for a bath or a shower or a walk or a sleep or something like that. Let us talk you to sleep. And let us be the voices inside your head when it comes to being positive about professional wrestling. Glenn?
I hear voices in your head. They talk to me about wrestling. They talk to me. They talk to me. It needs to be tighter. Tighter, O'Neil. You're awesome.